Today, we are going to be looking at the game where Ding Liren earned his third and final Grandmaster norm in the game of chess to officially become a Grandmaster. This was played in the 2009 China National Chess Championship. His opponent was Li Shilong, rated 2557, and Ding Liren at the time was rated 2458. He actually went up over 100 points this year. He became a Grandmaster at the age of 15 years and 10 months old, and he's a beast. He took down Gukesh today. Everybody and their mom is going to be making a recap video on that. So I thought we'd take a look at the game that started it all, where he first became a Grandmaster. So he is playing with the white pieces. He is a little less rated than Li Shilong, but he played at 95 accuracy, and we get a King's Indian. We've been looking at this a lot recently, right? So we get e4, d6, main line King's Indian. I'm happy for him winning. He's in a little bit of a chess slump. And you know how that feels, right? It's not the greatest feeling in the world. We've felt better. Bishop to e2, we get pawn to e5, striking in the center. So typically when white castles queenside, black plays for c5 because you want to attack towards the side of the board your pawn chain's facing. Looks like Ding is going kingside, so black's pawn chain is facing the king side. Castles, knight a6. Okay, what is the point of knight a6? It is one of the main moves, and it kind of deters d5. Why does it deter d5? Because the knight will jump to c5, aiming at this pawn, and when you spend time guarding the pawn, you get pawn to a5, and you numb the incoming bayonet type attacks that could arise. So we got rook e1. Ding likes playing with these Maroczy pawn structures, I suppose. We got pawn to c6, right? This knight on a6. If it's not coming to c5, then it's going to come to c7 later on. Resembling this check perk structure. So we got bishop to e3. Pawn takes pawn, and we get the Maroczy pawn structure. Okay, rook to e8, aiming in at this pawn. Pawn to f3 defends everything. We get knight to c5 and queen to d2, fully developing, right? So you get this battery, you get your rooks connected. Life is pretty good. Life is pretty good for both sides, though, so far. All right, a5 deterring b4. That makes a lot of sense. Common ideas in the King's Indian. Rook a to d1. Everything is aiming in here. And what does black decide to do? He goes knight f d7, opening up the dark squared bishop, connecting the knights, but blocking in his light squared bishop. It does open up his queen on this diagonal as well, so it's a multi-purpose move, and this knight can later jump to e5, where it can pose problems in white's position. Bishop to f1, I love this move. This game is incredible because it demonstrates his positional and then tactical vision throughout. He does sacrifice his queen temporarily in this game as well, so you get a little bit of everything. All right, a4. Funny that this kind of resembles the game from today, right? And the pawn will land on a3, and black will try to get chances, but he doesn't get any. All right, knight d to e2, queen to b6. He lets go of the d6 pawn in order for him to find this tactic, knight takes e4. There's a lot going on. This knight aims at the queen, it aims at the knight. This bishop also aims at the knight. This bishop aims at the queen. The pawn and the knight aim at the knight, right? There's a tactical skirmish. Ding plays the only good move in the position, queen to f4, guarding the bishop, so the queen is still under fire and the knight is still under fire. Black moves his knight to cut off the bishop's connection to the queen, and we get knight to e4, cutting off the rook from the bishop, exploiting the pin here on c5 now. No one likes to be pinned, so he goes queen a5. Why? Because no one likes to be pinned. Unpin yourself. The knight jumps into d6, into the hole of the position, aiming at the bishop, aiming at the rook. Highly doubt he ever intends on taking the bishop, unless it becomes a great piece, but right now it is not a great piece. So right now it is just threatening the rook, and the rook moves back to f8, deterring this queen takes f7 tactic that could have been incoming. We get queen to h4, routing over to a better diagonal, asking questions, posing problems, and black takes on b2. That is a poison pawn. That is typically a poison pawn. In this case, it is also a poison pawn. The knight jumps to d4. Sorry about that. The knight jumps to d4, cutting off the bishop's vision. And then we get queen c7, right? Black's best bishop is the dark squared bishop because he has this fianchetto pawn structure. What's a fianchetto pawn structure without the bishop plugging the weaknesses. A poor pawn structure. So we got queen c7, aiming at the knight. Look at this. Ding goes queen e7 here. However, he had the move knight 4 to f5. An incredible move. It looks confusing at first, so let's talk about it. What if pawn takes pawn? Well, you get queen, g3. The king has to move, and amazing knight takes f7, picking up the queen. You might be like, okay, but we didn't have to take that knight. And that would be a true statement. Let's say the knight moves. Or I'm sorry, the king moves. Why am I getting these pieces wrong? Well, you would have knight takes f7 check. If the rook takes, you would have bishop to d4, aiming in at everything. We'd get bishop takes, queen takes, of course. If rook to f6, you'd have rook e8 mate. And if they try to block with, say, the knight, you would have queen mate. So everything leads to mate. There would be a big mating box. So knight 4 to f5, an incredible move. But he plays queen e7. He's like, your pieces just cannot move. Your rook can't move. You're going to lose the pawn on f7. I'm guarding my knight. Both my rooks are on the open files. Life is very good. Black's like, okay, I need to queen trade. And he's like, sure, you could queen trade, but I'm going to aim at your rook in the meantime. Now, if queen takes queen, we would get rook takes. Black would arguably have to save the rook. And he's just like in a mating box and going to lose all his pieces. So he goes knight to b6, opening up his bishop, but this is too little, too late. Queen to e5, threatening mate in 1. We get knight to e6, and find white's next move. So a temporary queen sacrifice, we're calling it. Knight takes knight, bishop takes queen, knight takes queen. So he gets the queen right back. All right, rook takes knight, and we get rook takes bishop. Ding is officially up a piece. His knight is pinned, but black cannot pressure it. We get bishop to e6. Finally, black is fully developed. He unpins himself, dropping his rook back to the first rank. He's like, I'm up a piece now. Let me not get too crazy. Let me just become a grandmaster, and then we can go a little crazy. All right, pawn to a3. Just like in the Gukesh Ding match today, that pawn could become a queen one day, though unlikely. Bishop to e3, aiming at the knight, trying to trade off. He picks up another pawn. Black kicks the knight. Ding offers a trade. Black declines the trade, forking the rook and the pawn. You don't really want to lose the a2 pawn, so he guards it. And then we get rook to b2. You really don't want to take that because then he can make another queen. He trades off bishops and then goes rook a1, double guarding the pawn. X-raying through for the double guard. We get c5 clamping down and rook f2 just consolidating, trading on his own terms if black is to trade. Rook to c8, he needs to guard the pawn. The game is close to wrapping up, I promise. Bishop to f4, rook to d8. We get bishop to e5, pinning the knight to the rook. He's just trying to simplify. I mean, why not? All right, knight to d1, and the game is over. What's the cleanest way to convert? Bishop takes rook. We got pawn takes bishop, and rook takes knight. A beautiful sacrifice to end the game. You eliminate the defender on b2, and after rook takes rook, rook takes pawn. You are up a piece. You have a passed pawn. You're up a bishop and a pawn, so the game is over. And this was the game that made Ding Liren a grandmaster. I haven't found it anywhere. It was hard to find the game, but we found it, and I hope you guys enjoyed a beautifully demonstrated crushing over the King's Indian. Who do you guys think is going to win the match? Have your opinions changed after seeing game 1? What do you think about their time management? Thank you guys as always for watching. Have a great day. Boom.